So today's topic is many years, decades in the making. Before this channel was even a twinkle in my eye, I have been thinking about this, watching and observing and watching, and then just filing my observations away in the back of my mind. I apologize in advance for just saying rich and poor, just not mincing any words. I don't like to mince words. I could say low income. I can say the luxury, wealthy. I don't know. I can make it very PC, but I've decided to just say it as it is. Rich and poor. There's a middle class, and I consider myself part of the middle class, but the middle class is slowly getting squeezed, slowly getting squeezed. So you either made it or you haven't. The middle class doesn't carry as much weight as it used to be. Maybe in a few years it will disappear altogether. Heard we're entering like another gilded age. I've heard we're entering a new age of neo-feudalism. For today's purposes, we're going to talk about something that seems both very unimportant but is actually very important, like these little details of what makes a space that caters toward a wealthier clientele, like a retail space or a restaurant, a neighborhood, how these spaces are designed to look like, versus if you're in a low-income neighborhood. There's a difference in design. Today we're just going to casually chat about that. I hesitate to even call this a video essay because this is just based on my observations and my personal experiences, and I invite you to talk about your observations down below. Without further ado, my name is Teresa, and this is the spaces of rich people and the spaces of poor people. So a little bit of background for you. I grew up in a lower income neighborhood. I hesitate to say poor because there could be poorer. Few blocks away from my childhood neighborhood, it does get poorer, okay? It does get really poor. There's a sliding scale of poor. If we really want to play the suffering Olympics, you can say at least it's not a third world country. Let me tell you this, there's certain parts of America and probably every state where it kind of does feel like a third world country. So I would say that I grew up in a lower income neighborhood. I never felt lacking of anything. I've never felt lacking of my basic necessities. Looking back in hindsight as an adult, there were some situations where I'm like, man, we were poor, and it all revolved around plumbing. If you ever had to take a shit in a bucket, you know what it's like to feel a little poor, okay? As an adult, I don't live in a rich neighborhood, let's get that straight, but I live next to one. I live next to a very upper middle class neighborhood, and I get all the benefits of living next to an upper middle class neighborhood without having to pay the HOA. I get all the benefits of a rich neighborhood, from retail stores, from restaurants, like enjoying the public parks and spaces. Ooh, it's nice. It's nice. It made me realize how incredibly different the two worlds were. So I'm in this kind of weird limbo where I'm not necessarily rich. I'm just middle class, but I do enjoy all the benefits of kind of living near where rich people live. It's all a matter of like, you just go hang out in the rich neighborhood. Just slap on a head to toe Lululemon outfit. You'll fit right in. Let me just describe to you the aesthetics of my old neighborhood. Across the street, there's somebody with 3 mattresses just chilling at the front of their house on their yard. I mean, it's a very overgrown yard, okay? Discarded mattresses. It's been rained on for years. There is no street parking. Sometimes there's double parking. There's an issue. There's like not enough parking spaces per household unit. These garages were built for 1 car under the assumption that each house has 1 car, but each house doesn't have 1 car. So there is no parking on the sidewalk. There is usually like a chicken that runs around. Some of your neighbors have poultry. It's a different context than, let's say, you live in a rural community and you live like on a farm. You could live in a very prosperous farm and have chickens. But for some reason, like if you live in the city, if you live in like a concrete jungle and there's a chicken running around your neighborhood, it's probably a sign that you're kind of like on the lower income spectrum of everything. Every once in a while, and this is like a feature that I don't mind, that I personally like, a block party. I'm kind of a little hard of hearing, so if the neighborhood is noisy, I don't really mind. If the neighbors are like fighting with each other, which in the past, the old neighbors used to really fight with each other, and I'm like, ooh, get to listen in to what they're fighting about. And let me tell you, it's some juicy things. Like back in the early 90s, we had these neighbors, and they had like some drama in their home. We could hear them. There was a single mother with 2 daughters. One of the daughters got hooked up with this guy that dealt in, I think she got involved with some selling of her wares. That's what I picked up from listening into these arguments. It was crazy. There was this liquor store that we lived next to, and there was this wall that people always urinate on. There's definitely some police activity. Like once the house behind ours, their garage blew up. This was in 94. Their garage just like caught fire one night because of an explosion, because there was, we think, a lab, but overall, these are isolated instances. But, in the course of a decade, instances will happen. There could be some police activity that happens in the neighborhood. There could be fires. There could be, police chases. There's like a misconception that crime happens in poorer neighborhoods. Well, let me tell you this. I currently don't live in a poor neighborhood. There's still police activity in this neighborhood. I've witnessed a police chase. I've witnessed a manhunt, like right outside my window. There's some flashlights and police scouring the bushes for some guy that ran away. And then we hear like, get on the ground now, motherfucker. I don't know what it is about cops, but they just love using the word motherfucker. And so do I. Just because it's a nicely manicured, Stepford looking neighborhood doesn't mean that there isn't some seedy activities happening underneath. There's been this lady who's going around stealing gum. There's been burglaries. Just because it's like a upper middle class neighborhood doesn't mean that you're safe. And there's a similar amounts of crime, just different crime. Nobody counts white collar crime in the census of counting crime. And there's a lot of vice that happens in this neighborhood, okay, despite the high HOA. And I'm here as an eyewitness on the ground covering crime. My name's Teresa, and I what can I say? I like to watch. In the wealthier upper middle class community, all the houses look the same, and every single one of them is beige. The only variation is like some of the beige is darker. Like one house may have like a lighter shade of beige, it might be like sandstorm. The other house, taupe. Swedish coffee. It is beige. It's all beige. The HOA, the Homeowners Association, makes it that way. And when you get into the very wealthy houses, these are the ones that basically are beach houses, beachfront property. When you are really rich, that means you can afford to indulge in your eccentricities. You can have more character to your home. You can choose to have a Tudor-looking mansion. You can make your beachfront property look like it's a doctor's office from the early 90s with the glass blocks if you want. You can make it into like a giant Tuscan villa. So I'm seeing a thread here. When you're in a poorer neighborhood, you can indulge in some eccentricities. You can somehow acquire a chicken, or you can paint your house bright pink, all the colors of the rainbow, which I don't mind. I like it. I prefer to live in a neighborhood in which there is no HOA, and then you could do whatever you want with your home. And that has some pitfalls, like the neighbor who has 3 disgusting mattresses on the front lawn and beaches their car on the lawn and has like an overgrown lawn, the scourge in the neighborhood person. You could do whatever you want, and you could indulge, you could DIY your eccentricities. And then when you're really rich, you could indulge in designing a home custom made. But when you're in the upper middle class sector, when you're living in these beige homes with these militant HOA communities, you have to conform. You're forced to conform even if you don't want to conform. Like, what if you want to paint your house pink, but you can't paint your house pink because then you'll get fines by the HOA, or they'll put a lien on your property and kick you out of the neighborhood. They could do that, So that is why a lot of the neighborhoods that we think are wealthy, that's why they fall into this conformist, neutral, sad beige design aesthetic, where everything is minimal, non-offensive. Beige is non-offensive to everyone, doesn't lower your property value. Everybody takes care of their lawn because they have to. Nobody litters. Actually, you know what? People do litter. And I just have to say, poor neighborhoods get a bad rep for being dirty. Just to let you know, none of it was dirty. Just because you're poor doesn't mean that you're dirty. Like, poor people clean. You know, poor people have to clean even more because they have the stigma of being considered dirty. Now that I live next, like I abut a rich neighborhood, like a wealthier neighborhood, this neighborhood is actually really dirty. From the outside, it doesn't look very dirty, but when you're walking on the grounds, let's just say I'm walking through this neighborhood in my Lululemon pants, etc. I don't really wear Lululemon pants, I wear Old Navy pants. You'll notice that people don't pick up after their dogs. They just assume that the gardeners will come and pick up after their dogs for them as they're mowing their lawns. There's a lot of dog poop around, okay? In the neighborhood I grew up in, there's never any dog poop. Of course, there is the guy that likes to urinate on the wall of the liquor store, but he moved on. It was a very small window of time in which there was like the neighborhood urinator, but he moved on. I don't know what happened to him, but he moved on to urinate in another neighborhood. He may not even be alive anymore, to be honest, but now nobody urinates in public again. I don't know what's worse. So there's some dude that urinates on the wall once in a blue moon. He doesn't do it all the time, only when he's really drunk, okay? Only when there's like a sale in liquor in the liquor store. Who hasn't been on the side of a liquor store wall at some point in their life? I mean, I haven't. It's hard to, I don't know, it's hard to aim for me. And let me just say that everybody picks up after their dog in this lower income neighborhood than in this wealthy neighborhood. There are plenty of dog walking bags around, but nobody uses it. It's entitlement is what it is. It makes you angry, doesn't it? It makes you want to urinate on somebody's wall, doesn't it? One of the things I pay extra close attention to when it comes to creating the ambiance of a place that caters toward a more wealthy clientele versus a more affordable low-income clientele is graphic design and interior design. One of the places you could definitely see this is in restaurants and retail spaces. So in a restaurant, for instance, that caters more toward a wealthy clientele, the focus is on ambiance. The lighting is always dim. There's always a candle or some kind of tea light on the table. Some of the times the lighting is so dim that you have trouble reading the menu. And yes, you do have to read the menu. Menu design in a more upscale $4 sign restaurant always involves a simple, clean, textured, creamy sheet of paper. There's usually sans serif font. You must read this menu because there are no pictures on this menu, okay? There is minimal description of the dishes. 3 words: chicken, squash, blossom. A lot of the times the descriptors are in French, but it's not necessarily in a French restaurant. Steak frites.
Haricots verts.
What he said, the H is silent. I've fallen for this many times. Ooh, this chicken comes with haricots verts. And I'm like, that sounds very special. And then it comes out and I'm like, oh, it's just chicken with green beans. But in my recollection, restaurants that service more of like a underprivileged community, we have restaurants that are in a strip mall. Usually they don't really focus on what the restaurant's name. It's not like some cutesy name. It's usually just Chinese food, Indian food, Mexican food. That's just what it says on the strip mall sign, just Chinese food. And the value proposition you get. Now, slowly, within the past 10 years, I noticed that these kind of restaurants are slowly going by the wayside in favor of just more chain fast food restaurants. The value proposition of a $5 Chinese meal is gone. Restaurants that do pop up nowadays are more toward the middle tier, the $3 sign tier. Like for instance, when I was a kid, my dad owned a tropical fish shop. They were pretty popular amongst the Asian community in the 90s. It was in a strip mall. We were right next to a liquor store and a coin laundry, like a mom and pop kind of deli. It's been many things. And there was also a very affordable Chinese restaurant, like a buffet style Chinese restaurant. But from my memory and recollection, ambiance, it has its own ambiance. It has I think a cozy ambiance because I'm used to seeing it. The lighting is always fluorescent, utilitarian light scheme. Because it was a family-owned business in these type of restaurants, there is always a kid doing their homework behind the counter, a fan going, a TV in the corner. The menus always have photos. The menus behind the counter always has like a photo of the food. I find myself much more comfortable in a restaurant that's more of like a hole in the wall, mom and pop owned, a dive, than a fine dining establishment. Now let's talk about dress code. So I am mostly based in Southern California, so dress code is not an issue. You could wear whatever you want in a fine dining restaurant. I've seen some people, I've been to a steakhouse, very expensive by the way, for the tiny little cut of filet mignon is like $36 just for the steak. They charge you for the water, extra for the mac and cheese, like $100 or more for the tomahawk steak, and that's not including cocktails. Like I've seen some people really put it away. Like people come and they dress up. It's a special occasion, you dress up. But at the same time, there are people who come in that are wearing sweats, or they're like wearing athleisure. Once we sat next to somebody, they had their hood up and they were wearing slides, just like slides, like bathroom slides, sweatpants. That's how you know that person is really rich, because if you can go to a steakhouse where everybody comes because of a birthday, like a special, like we're celebrating grandma's 80th birthday, and they come in and it's just like a regular night for them, they show up in their pajamas in a steakhouse where they're probably going to spend like $500. California is so casual. Nobody in a restaurant is ever going to refuse service to somebody who's wearing sweats to a high-end steakhouse. There might be a suggestion of a dress code, but nobody's going to turn you away if you have the money. I've been to Charleston, and I've been to like a $4 sign restaurant there. And in that case, in that area, you definitely need to dress up. I felt underdressed. I was wearing a dress, heels, whatever. I felt underdressed. Like I felt like I needed to wear an evening gown. My husband felt like he needed to wear one of those navy blazers and some khaki pants. But you can tell that some people are really wealthy because they're just chilling at a high-end steakhouse in the middle of the day wearing athleisure or even a sweatpants. Like they have a whole hobo core look going on. It's just the confidence that they exude. If you can wear sweats in a fine dining $4 sign establishment, then you are embodying stealth wealth. I don't know about you, but I feel really intimidated going into a luxury boutique. You know the stores I'm talking about, like they're usually associated with a luxury brand like Louis Vuitton, Chloe, like just a standalone luxury boutique. I'm not somebody who buys high-end designer items. When I was little, I used to be intimidated going to Nordstrom. In fact, let's take this further. I used to think all the stores at the mall, just typical stores at the mall, were reserved for rich people. Macy's was reserved for wealthier people. I was a little intimidated even to buy things from Sears. And I can't even set foot inside of Nordstrom's. I used to think like if I walked through Sears, we've gone up in the world. We've come up in the world because we would shop at like Pick and Save. Pick and Save used to sell clothes. We would shop at Ross, Target, or Kmart. Not even regular clothes at Target and Kmart. They have to be discounted clothes, like in the discount rack. Like my mom would never buy anything that was on sale, so she would only buy stuff that was on the clearance rack. She made it very clear all my tops cannot be over $5, so they were $3. Once I bought a top for like $6, and that was pushing it. That was really pushing. That was a splurge, and she never let me forget it. And I can't even forget it now. For reference and inflation's sake, it was in the 90s, so you could definitely buy some discounted tops at Target for less than $5. What's sad is that the quality of those tops, while not the best quality, is leagues above the quality of something that you could buy at Nordstrom now. You could buy a top for $80 at Nordstrom and would be lower quality than a $3 discounted top I got at Target in like 1997. Let's just say that because of that mentality, when we went to the mall, it wasn't even to shop. We never went inside the mall to shop for clothes. We just go into the mall to just walk around and take in the ambiance, but also for me in some strange way to observe rich people, or people I thought were rich. They weren't rich in actuality. They're just regular people, not like super frugal to the point of winning like a contest for the most frugal family ever. They were just regular people. Somehow in my late elementary school days, I formulated this idea that the mall was for rich people. Even to this day, I feel intimidated to walk into a Chloe store or Louis Vuitton. Not that I really want to buy anything, but I feel intimidated to just go in and shop. Retail spaces that cater toward a luxury market are designed minimally. There's is just one rack and the clothing items are placed sparsely. And each item is probably worth $500. Everything looks so nice. Everything is just so. And when you walk in, there's usually nobody in the store and you might be the only customer. There's either a very attentive sales associate or there's a very snobby sales associate. The very attentive sales associate intimidates me because they're always on you. They're always like, "Can I help you with this? Can I help you with that?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just looking." And then you know that they're watching you. And if it's a luxury space, they're probably judging you. And I'm not coming in with a high-end bag or anything. I'm coming in with a $30 crossbody. Then there's the sales associate that's like snobby, that doesn't want to help you. That gives off the vibe that you're bothering them just by stepping into the store. And they're also watching you and judging you. I have been both a very attentive and peppy sales associate. "Hi, you want to try this on? How about this? We're having a great sale on this. Have you looked at this? This color would be great on you. Why don't you just try it on? Oh my God. Oh my God, stop there. That's perfect on you. I want to get one too." And I have been a very snobby sales associate. I'm sorry to admit. Can I help you? I'll just be over there if you need me. Have a look around, whatever. It wasn't intentional. It was just because for that one sales job, I did not make any commission. I had no motivation to make the hard sale. I wasn't aggressively rude. I was just very apathetic. I was not in their face about it. I was not like hovering over their shoulder. I just let them browse at their leisure. And they're like, "Can you discount this thing for me?" No, I can't. Then I'll go somewhere else and get a better deal. You could shop around. They shopped around and they came back and I made the sale. And what's ironic is that the more apathetic I was and the more like I just left the customers alone and the more I wasn't really willing to bend over backwards to make the sale, the more sales I made. Like I made the most sales from that job. Like, I actually actively encouraged them to go somewhere else and get a better deal, but they just kept coming back to me. Years later, I was reading the psychology of making a sale in a luxury retail setting. The ruder the sales associate is to you, the more likely you're willing to buy something just to like prove to them that you can afford it or something. Everybody's heard of the impossible to purchase Birkin bag. It's like what, $20,000 a bag? You can't even buy that bag if you wanted to because it's scarce, it's exclusive. And in order to buy that bag, you have to jump through hoops. You have to go to Hermes and then you have to purchase a bunch of bags that you don't necessarily want just so that you can have the chance or the hope to buy a Birkin bag, and not necessarily a Birkin of the color that you want, just the Birkin. They'll just choose whatever color. So basically you as a customer are treated like crap and you like it. You like being forced to jump through these hoops. And I feel like that kind of poor customer service disguised as exclusivity was what I was projecting during that sales job where I didn't get any commission but made a bunch of sales. It's because I honestly didn't try. Maybe they thought I was being snobby toward them because if I cock my eyebrow up, I really look like I'm skeptical about your ability to pay for something. My resting face is actually really bitchy. I had this coworker who just kept asking me if I was angry or something. And I'm like, I'm not angry. I was angry in that she kept bothering me and asking me if I was angry, but it was just because she thought my face was bitchy. You see this eyebrow? And honestly, this doesn't work unless you're in a luxury setting. If you give that attitude at Walmart, you're gonna get fired. There was a time about a year, maybe 2 years ago, there was this conversation happening on TikTok, a very heated conversation on TikTok, where somebody proclaimed that if you had oak or wooden looking cabinets, it's not the usual white and bright farmhouse looking cabinets, but like specifically oak cabinets in your kitchen, that was a sign that you were poor. My head honestly hurts. I don't know what to say in the face of such stupidity. Let's just say everybody got really heated about it and there were several clapbacks. I would always remember that. Now, currently, I'm renting. Currently, my cabinets are white and they look like crap. I don't even know if it's real wood, but it's laminate and the laminate is peeling off. but I think they must be referring to like just the style of kitchen that was vastly popular in the early 2000s. You know, that Tuscan kitchen, or like the 90s wood kitchen. Like it's dated. I feel like the logic here is so wrong, because do you know how much wood costs? Do you know how scarce and how much wood costs nowadays, as every furniture item that used to be made out of real wood is now being replaced by particle board, fiber board, like that honeycomb paper filling? You know, it's just like the worst, absolute worst material. Over time, looks cheap. I feel like if you have oak cabinets in your home, you're doing pretty good. I have personally toured new build homes, model homes, going in the millions of dollars, like $1.2 million, completely new build, built within 6 months or so. It looks good from far away, or it looks good when you're in the room for like 5 minutes, but then when you try to shut the door is not really flush with the frame. You realize that they've cut a lot of corners. The walls are paper thin. I've been watching several contractors just expose how they're using the most molded particle board. The particle board can't even stay together. So these houses are probably going to last maybe 5 years, 10 years. I don't know if it'll last 10 years at the most. And this is speaking from somebody who, I don't want to brag, but I am a connoisseur of wood. I appreciate wood. I like to knock on wood and listen to the sound that real wood makes and appreciate it. And if you don't believe me, I'm a card-carrying member of the New England Historical Society. I've got receipts. You see this? Historic New England. That's right. I got a card and I know how to use it. And you know what comes along with being a member of the New England Historical Society? This passport book. When you visit them, you get a stamp. So see here, I have been to I've been to the Gropius house, you know? See the stamp? I've been there, and I've appreciated the wood. Oh, some good wood. Great staircase, you know, great spiral staircase. Look here. The Phillips House in Salem, Massachusetts. You see the stamp? I've been there. And this house had great wood. It was like a 3-story house. Great wood. I believe it's a colonial revival. The stamp is a little faint because they ran out of ink, but I've been to the Otis house, and that was also great wood that we appreciated that day. The House of Seven Gables in Salem, Massachusetts. It's not on the list. That was when we learned Kingswood, the broadest plank of wood on the floor. The docent pointed to the floor. That's Kingswood. And I looked at the Kingswood and I said, I, Teresa, a member of the historic New England Society, I appreciated that wood. So this house here is an example of wood on wood on wood. The furniture is a sturdy wood. The floors are made of the broadest king's oak. And the walls, my God, the walls are made of wood. So I wouldn't say that Mr. Winslow Crocker was poor. He covered his whole dining room in oak. Oh, look at this. I haven't visited this yet. It's the Quincy House in Quincy, Massachusetts. You would think it's from John Quincy Adams, but it's owned by Colonel Josiah Quincy. Yeah. This house is made of wood too. Everybody in this book appreciates oak, and none of them are poor. I feel like if your house is part of the historical society, you are not poor. This here is not even a house. This here is like a farm full of cows. I guess I have to go appreciate that too. Very vain about this. I don't know what it is. I used to live in the hood and now I appreciate wood. Oh my God, that rhymes. What a poet I am. I never have an excuse to show off my membership to the New England Historical Society. So here it is. Never leave home without it, because you never know when you may see an old house that could be part of the society, and then you could just go in and appreciate the wood.